So next question is from AAWS424, or OWS. I think I've recommended them in a video before. So this comes from Instagram. How do you have the time for all of this you do? I barely do anything and I don't have any time left. So this is an interesting one. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe I've got a bit of a different perspective on it than other people. Obviously, we're all very busy people and we all wish we had more time. And there is objectively a certain amount of time within the day. There are some really annoying people that say, well, actually, you do have more time than you think, because when you go home, you sit and you watch the internet and all this kind of thing, and you sleep and you eat, and you also have time to speak to people. You know, there's more time in there than you think, so you can be spending that time doing other things and optimize. But I think people that think a bit like that are missing a fundamental point. Time isn't the issue necessarily. It sounds counterproductive, but bear with me. I tend to work in very short but very energetic bursts, and I get a lot done. I get like as much as a whole team of people can get done. Why? Because I've optimized my patterns, should we say. My muscle memory is incredible for a lot of tasks, and I also create tools to remove a lot of parts of the processes that slow people down. So especially with like Blender, I make tools to speed up the process, like modular workspaces cuts out a whole chunk. That is abstraction, effectively. You're controlling more things with fewer actions. So there's a philosophy behind that and understanding how you can design not just tools, but also the space around you to maximize your effort so that you put less effort into making more things happen. That's why I like designing a space in a circle around me so that everything is kind of within reach. And that also kind of applies to the digital space as well. But that's not even the main thing I want to talk about. You see, in a day, I think your cognition is phasing between different states, particularly for me as well. There are some parts of the day, and it doesn't happen every day, where I am completely okay with messaging people and talking to people, and there are other parts where even just the act of reading their messages just seems like an impossible task. It's like there are these different parts of the brain which open and close without me even necessarily knowing or feeling it. And the key thing here is, how do you transition your work throughout a day to make use of the parts of your brain which are opening? So this is kind of how I see it. People will go for an entire day of work without even considering something like that, right? So they'll know that they'll hit productivity highs at certain parts of the day and then just lulls for the rest of it, because maybe the stars align and that part of your brain that's opening correlates with the work that you're doing. But I do also believe in rest periods as well, because there comes a part of the day, usually closer to the evening before I go to bed, where I can just feel my brain saying, I cannot comprehend new decisions right now, where I don't trust myself to respond to messages or to record anything. I mean, it's too dark and quiet by that point anyway. I don't trust myself to work on any code projects. It is kind of just like, you know, the energy has disappeared. So at that point in the day, I tend to just play video games and maybe chat with friends. And I feel like that's important because that's also kind of fuel in a way. But keeping this idea of the phasing brain in mind, and abstraction as well, so making more things happen with less effort, my advice for anyone is to continuously, all the way throughout your life, observe how you work. And I've done this quite actively this year, making videos about it as well, talking about some things I recognized where me organizing work in certain ways was creating a detriment mentally. But intellectualizing your behavior is only one part of the process. And again, I said this at the end of my burnout video, I think it was, that I understand why I have bottlenecks in work, but understanding why is not the same as fixing the problem. One thing I'm doing now to fix some of my problems is I'm literally taking some of the ideas I have in my digital workspace, and because I never read them, I'm putting them into physical paper and putting them into bowls and stuff. And anything that's related to products, I've got a little box that says the factory must grow. It's a Victoria reference. And the thing is, we've kind of evolved to have everything very spatial and tactile. And I feel like literally grasping onto the environment with our brains like this is better than the compartmentalized mode of using the digital space, where, for example, once your list of tasks is closed on a window on the computer, as far as you're concerned, it doesn't exist. But having everything accessible to you in a physical space kind of makes it feel like all of the pieces of information are ready to be linked together. What this also means is that, say, for example, if I'm recognizing that I'm not in a mental state to do regular video work, I can come over here, have a look at things, move some stuff around, maybe play with some of the physical projects I've been doing, maybe record something else over here because it feels different to over there. There's like a connotation to regular work on that workspace. And just by having some part of your work that feels different means that you might have something to do when that brain opens into a different phase. And I kind of also described this in another video as more effectively capturing creativity, where if you imagine yourself as a star, like a sun, instead of trying to tell it what to do, like you must do this task and do this task and do this task, instead conceptualize conceptually imagine that you're building a Dyson sphere around the star. A Dyson sphere is a megastructure that captures the energy. Every star is emitting an incredible amount of energy all of the time throughout its lifetime, but most of it's kind of going to waste. It's an incredible amount of potential, but if you build a megastructure to capture it, then you can more effectively turn that energy into something useful. So me literally sitting here in the middle of my workspace, this workspace is my Dyson sphere, if that makes sense. As I want to do things, and as I feel different throughout the day, I am building areas to more effectively capture some of that creative energy. So even though the same amount of time passes in a day for me compared to someone else, if you put us in a line, I tend to get more stuff done throughout a day because I have invested more time into effectively capturing my creative energy as I phase between different interests within any particular day, compared to someone that sits down and forces them to do one particular type of work the whole time. And it also goes hand in hand with the fact that my work is not one thing. In fact, it's very difficult to define. I do the YouTube videos, I do the products, I do art stuff. I have specifically crafted a job which incorporates almost all of my interests, and especially this year as well, been finding ways to kind of integrate more of those interests into that ecosystem of work. So again, combining all of these things, if you measured the output with a job that allows me to do anything and a workspace that captures me at any particular point of interest, then again, within the same amount of time, it looks like I do more than other people. But again, it's continuous. It's something I continuously trying to figure out. And that's the really cool thing about this, is that because you're doing things based on your interests, like I've got like a drill press right in front of me. This is really fun stuff I want to play with. I've got cards I want to turn into ID things for the server. I've got acrylic sheets down here. I've got things I can doodle on. I've got lots of stuff I can like graffiti on. Like this is all fun stuff that I just really want to be tactile with and do stuff with. So to me, stuff like this doesn't at all feel like forcing myself to work. It's just more stuff I can play with, which I feel like is probably the most important part about it. Because for people that have attention problems, as in problems with paying attention, it can often very simply be distilled down into one issue. And the issue is that the thing you're trying to pay attention to is less interesting than the alternative of what you can be doing. So if that's the case, you need to look at the work you want to do and try and figure out ways to make it more exciting and interesting for you. So that's just one thing to keep in mind with the question of how do you do so much in a day. It is not, and I will repeat this because it flies in the face of a lot of productivity gurus, it is not about forcing yourself to do more. It's about over time giving yourself an environment that you enjoy playing with, an environment which adapts to your different moods and your cognitive phases, and that effectively captures the energy of that play. I guess another way to think about it, in terms of an analogy, would be like imagine you have a baby playing with a toy, like a toy car, but unbeknownst to the child, that toy car has a little generator inside of it and it's creating electricity. Does that make sense? The child has no idea that it's working, it's just playing, and we're creating something interesting out there. And then the child gets bored of the toy and then goes off and plays with something else, or eats something. But all of these things are productive in their own way, even if they don't look like it on the surface. So again, this is something I've been learning this year more than any other year. I was much more productivity focused in the past, like in the traditional sense of what tools can be used to optimize our workflows and stuff. But I don't know, I feel like I've had a massive revelation this year, more than any. But it all started with trying to over-intellectualize and analyze how my brain works. And that was basically the gateway to figuring a lot of these things out. And I'm not going to be completely on the mark about things in this video, but for me, I feel like I've really unlocked something and I want to push it further. So yeah, hopefully you found this interesting. If you want to learn more about my work, you can go to curtisholt.online and follow me on social media at Curtis James Holt. Feel free to sign up to my Patreon if you want to support my work. If you're anywhere where you can write a comment, let me know if you made it to the end. Have a fantastic day and I will see you next time.